Welcome back, historians. Why did West African trading empires rise and fall? African beginnings. Scientists believe the first humans lived in Africa more than 150,000 years ago. About 7 or 8,000 years ago, groups of people began to stay in one place. They tamed animals, grew crops, and formed villages. Later, these villages became more organized. Africa's first civilizations developed. They were called Egypt and Kush. The geography of Africa affected its early people. Africa is the second largest continent on Earth. It has 4 geographic zones and climates. These differ a great deal from one another. Plateaus cover most of Africa's land. A plateau is an area of high, mostly flat land. Africa also features many large river systems. Egypt and Kush grew along the Nile River in North Africa. The Niger River is the major river system in West Africa. Trading empires in Africa. The Sahara separated North Africa from the rest of Africa for thousands of years. Then, about 400 BC, the Berber people found ways to cross this vast desert. They reached West Africa. Trade began between the two regions. Berbers used donkeys and horses to cross the Sahara, but these animals often died because of the heat. In AD 200, the Romans introduced the camel to North Africa. Camels could better handle the hot, dry conditions. They can travel days without water. The use of camels increased trade between North Africa and West Africa. Berber traders formed caravans made up of many camels. The caravans carried trade goods, such as ivory, spices, and leather, across the Sahara. At times, the caravans also transported enslaved people who were captured in wars. Merchants sent the enslaved people to the Mediterranean region and Southwest Asia. In these locations, they served as soldiers and household servants. West African kingdoms. Caravans traveled from North Africa to West Africa. One of the important goods they carried was salt. This salt came from mines located in the Sahara. Traders also brought Islam to West Africa in the AD 700s. Many merchants in West Africa became Muslims. Ghana was the first great trading empire in West Africa. It grew powerful during the AD 400s as a center of trade. Ghana was located between the salt mines of the Sahara and the gold mines of West Africa. Ghana's kings became wealthy by taxing traders who passed through the empire. Muslim Arabs and Berber traders brought Islam to Ghana. Many people converted to Islam. The power of Ghana slowly declined in the AD 1100s. One group separated from the empire and formed the Empire of Mali. In the AD 1200s, Mali conquered what was left of Ghana. Griots told how Sundiata Keita ruled well and made Mali great. Griots are traditional African storytellers. Sundiata united people under a strong government. He also conquered new lands that put Mali in control of gold mines in West Africa. The empire built its wealth and power on the gold and salt trade. Mali began to weaken in AD 1337. The state of Songhai eventually gained control of the gold and salt trade. By AD 1492, Songhai had become the largest empire in West Africa. This empire lasted about 100 more years. East African kingdoms. The East African kingdom of Aksum became an important stop on trade routes that connected Africa, the Mediterranean world, and India. In AD 334, King Ezana made Christianity the official religion. Islam was introduced later. Both religions had a major impact. Arab traders had sailed to East Africa for many years. They traveled in sailboats called dhows. These ships used a special triangle-shaped sail to catch the wind. In the AD 700s, many Arab Muslim traders settled along the Indian Ocean in East Africa. The Indian Ocean trade also reached inland. During the AD 900s, Zimbabwe became one of the important inland trading states. Many large stone buildings still stand at the site of the empire's capital, Great Zimbabwe. African rulers and society. Africans developed different ways to rule their growing empires. Powerful empires such as Ghana and Mali had strong, central governments. Rulers settled disputes, controlled trade, and defended the empire. In return, They expected total loyalty from their people. This relationship was good for everyone. Ghana had a council of ministers to help the king govern. Kings divided Ghana into provinces as the empire grew. Lesser kings ruled these provinces. Chiefs ruled smaller districts. A district included all the villages in a chief's clan, those who shared the same ancestor as the chief. Ghana's government transferred power between rulers in a unique way. Leadership passed only to the son of the king's sister. This was different from the custom in lands where property passed to a man's sons. Mali had a government similar to that of Ghana. The kingdom had more territory, people, and trade than Ghana. As a result, its royal officials had extra responsibilities. The kings of Mali led a strong central government. The empire was divided into provinces. Generals governed these provinces and protected Mali from invaders. They also usually came from the provinces they ruled. People commonly supported the generals for those reasons. The richest and most famous king of Mali was Mansa Musa. He ruled from A.D. 1312 to A.D. 1337. Mansa Musa won people's loyalty by giving them gifts like gold, property, and horses. Songhai built its government on the political traditions of Ghana and Mali. The empire was at its most powerful under Muhammad Tour, a general and devout Muslim. He divided Songhai into provinces. A governor, a tax collector, a court of judges, and a trade inspector were in charge of each province. Muhammad Tour used a navy and soldiers on horseback to keep peace. Traditional African religions. Most African societies shared some common religious beliefs. Many shared a belief in a single creator God. Some wanted to keep their own religious practices. These practices varied in different places. Even though religious beliefs differed, they served similar purposes. They provided rules to live by. They also helped people remember their history. Africans believed that religion could protect them from danger and help them succeed in life. Some believed that a group of people called diviners could foretell the future. Kings hired diviners to guarantee good harvests and protect their kingdoms. Islam arrives in Africa. The arrival of Islam began to challenge traditional religions starting in the AD 700s. Berber and Arab merchants took Islam to West Africa as they traded. African rulers welcomed the Muslim traders. They allowed their people to accept Islam. During the AD 1000s, African rulers themselves finally began to accept Islam. Much of Africa's population south of the Sahara converted to Islam by the end of the 1400s. Mansa Musa became Mali's most famous ruler. He worked hard to spread Islam. He used his wealth to build mosques. He also set up libraries in the capital, Timbuktu. Mansa Musa became well known for his journey to the Muslim holy city of Mecca. In Mecca, Mansa Musa made sure the people knew he was the ruler of a great empire. He brought a large caravan of camels carrying gold. Mansa Musa gave this gold to the poor he met along his journey. In Mecca, Mansa Musa met Muslim scholars. He talked them into returning to Mali with him. These scholars helped spread Islam in West Africa. A young Arab lawyer from Morocco named Ibn Battuta was impressed by Mansa Musa. In 1325 he set out to see the Muslim world. In West Africa, he discovered many people were Muslims. However, some people still followed traditional African religions. Islam spread slowly in East Africa. A new society called Swahili helped it spread beginning in the 1100s and 1200s. The Swahili culture and language are a mixture of African and Muslim cultures. The Muslim influences came from Arab and Persian settlers. Swahili comes from an Arabic word meaning people of the coast. Swahili culture and language remain important in modern Africa. Islam had a major impact on Africa. Many people accepted the laws and ideas of Islam. Muslim schools introduced the Arabic language. Islam also had an effect on art and architecture in Africa. Muslim builders created beautiful mosques and palaces in African cities such as Timbuktu. African society. Family was the basis of African society. Many people lived in extended families. These were families made up of several generations. Extended families belonged to larger groups of people called lineage groups. All of the people in a lineage group could trace their family history to one common relative. Members of these groups supported and cared for each other. A group of people called the Bantu began to migrate from West Africa around 3000 BC. The migrations lasted hundreds of years. The Bantu shared common cultures, languages, and technologies, such as farming and ironworking. These migrations spread similarities throughout Africa. Today, more than 200 million Africans speak Bantu languages. Many villages were matrilineal. This means that people traced family history through mothers instead of fathers. However, women joined their husbands' families when they married. Women's families would receive gifts to make up for this loss. Gifts might include cattle, metal tools, goats, or cloth. African families valued children. Children meant that families would live on and prosper. Family members and other villagers educated children. In West Africa, griots taught children through oral history. These are stories told out loud and passed down from generation to generation. The stories often contained a life lesson. These lessons were told as proverbs, or short sayings that are easy to remember. Children also learned basic skills they would need when they grew up. African women acted mostly as wives and mothers. They had fewer rights than men. However, some women served as soldiers and rulers. Queen Dahia al-Kahina led an army to fight off Arab invaders who attacked her kingdom. Another woman ruler was Queen Nzinga. She spent many years fighting Europeans and the slave trade. The slave trade. Slavery had existed in Africa since ancient times. It was a common practice in many parts of the world. Bantu warriors often raided villages for captives. These people worked for African rulers as laborers, servants, or soldiers. Their lives were hard, but enslaved Africans could win their freedom. Sometimes they were able to work for their freedom, or they might marry a free person. Enslaved people became part of the African trade. This trade grew as contact with the Muslim world increased. The Quran forbid Muslims to enslave other Muslims. They could, however, enslave non-Muslims. This caused Arab Muslim merchants to trade goods for enslaved Africans who were not Muslim. The arrival of Europeans caused the slave trade to grow even more. The European slave trade began in 1441 when African captives were taken to Portugal. Most enslaved Africans worked as laborers in Portugal at first. Portugal later settled islands in the Atlantic Ocean. On these islands, they grew crops such as sugarcane on huge farms called plantations. Sugarcane is a grassy plant used to make sugar. Harvesting this crop was hard work. The enslaved workers received no pay. Other European countries began to join Portugal in the slave trade. These countries started to settle in the Americas during the late 1400s. They brought enslaved Africans to the Americas to help grow crops such as sugar, tobacco, rice, and cotton. Culture in Africa. African works of art had a religious purpose. Artists made these works to help people connect with gods, spirits, or ancestors. Art also helped teach people about their history. Rock paintings were the earliest form of art in Africa. Later, woodcarvers made masks and statues. In the AD 1200s and 1300s, people in Benin made statues of bronze and iron. Music and dance in Africa related to everyday life. These arts could express religious feelings. Enslaved Africans used music to remember their homeland. In America, songs that told of hard times became known as the blues. Spirituals are gospel songs. They developed from songs of religious faith and hope for freedom. Ragtime, jazz, rock and roll, and rap are all forms of African-based music. Dance offered a way for Africans to communicate with the spirits. Dance also reflected community life and marked important stages of life. Africans also kept alive their storytelling tradition. Some enslaved Africans shared their stories after they escaped. Those who heard the stories told them again and again.